Multiple times throughout the film, Riley is faced with challenging social and emotional situations, leaving her hockey team and her friends as her family moved across the country, arriving at a new house that was not move-in ready, excited to order pizza only to find out that it is topped with broccoli, starting a new school and immediately being called upon by the teacher. These situations could be challenging for any 11-year-old child. But why did Riley respond the way she did? Her responses to these challenging situations were mostly with negative emotions and, one could argue, made the situation even worse. An observer could judge her responses as not the most appropriate nor the most effective. So why did Riley respond the way she did? Is Bing Bong to blame?
Down with DCE.
Yeah, you know me.
You down with DCE?
Yeah, you know me.
You down with DCE?
Yeah, you know me.
Who's down with DCE?
Bing Bong is Riley's imaginary companion that she created when she was 3 years old. He describes himself as being made up mostly of cotton candy, with structural elements of a cat, elephant, and dolphin. While there is limited research on imaginary companions, Riley is not alone. Approximately 20 to 30% of preschool-aged children have imaginary companions. The reason why some, and not all children create an imaginary companion is not entirely clear. Firstborn and children without a sibling are more likely to create one. And while not true across all studies, when a gender difference was found, girls seem to show a higher prevalence for imaginary companions compared to boys. So far, all of this data fits nice and snugly with what we know about Riley. She is a single child, is female, and brought Bing Bong into existence during the preschool years. The question now to answer is this: did having an imaginary companion have a negative effect on Riley's socio-cognitive development? There has historically been, and continues to be, concern related to why some children create imaginary companions in the first place. One common concern is that imaginary companions could be a child's attempt to compensate for poor social relationships or loneliness. Whatever the origin story may be, many research studies suggest that imaginary companions are more beneficial for children than they are harmful. This video will present the findings from a research study that found that children with imaginary companions have a better theory of mind and emotional understanding than children without imaginary companions. To test emotion understanding, researchers presented a cartoon scenario to children while reading a story. After hearing the story, children were asked to attribute an emotion to the main character by pointing to the most appropriate of the three possible emotional outcomes. For example, this girl is being chased by a monster. How is she feeling? Happy? Just all right? Or scared? Children in the younger group were an average of 4 years and 10 months old, and children in the older group were an average of 6 years and 2 months old. The highest score a child could receive is a 10. For both the younger and older groups, children with imaginary companions scored higher than children without one. Gender played an interesting role. Younger boys without an imaginary companion scored higher than girls without one, but older girls without an imaginary companion scored only slightly higher than older boys without one. When a girl, younger or older, had an imaginary companion, they scored higher than boys with or without one. Furthermore, the difference between younger and older children was twice as high in girls as in boys. Younger girls had an average score of 5.94, and older girls averaged at 8.11, a difference of more than 2 components in favor of the older girls, whereas younger boys had an average score of 5.98, and older boys averaged at 6.78, a difference of less than 1 component in favor of the older boys. This suggests that imaginary companions can be especially impactful for the emotional understanding abilities in girls. To test theory of mind, researchers presented a cartoon scenario while reading a story. After hearing the story, children were asked to choose between 2 possible answers. Here's an example of one of the stories. This mouse is eating some delicious sweets. Behind the mouse is a bush. The experimenter lifts the bush on the picture, shows a bear, and continues the story. This is a bear. The bear is hiding behind the bush because it wants to eat the mouse. We'll put the bush back so the mouse can't see that the bear is hiding behind the bush. The experimenter puts the bush back on the picture. Does the mouse in the picture know that the bear is hiding behind the bush? Either yes, the mouse knows, or no, the mouse doesn't know. The highest score a child could receive is a 10. The data reveals some interesting findings. In general, older children performed better than younger children, and girls performed better than boys. Furthermore, children with imaginary companions performed better than those without one. Together, this study found that imaginary companions may have a positive impact on the socio-cognitive abilities of children, as children with imaginary companions scored higher on theory of mind and emotional understanding compared to children without one. Bing Bong? No. Bing Bong, you don't need to cry tears of candy. You are not to blame at all. In fact, we discovered that all of your interactions with Riley probably increased her socio-cognitive capabilities. In general, dialogue and narration are two important factors for the development of both theory of mind and emotion understanding. Remember when you and Riley were in a band, would run around the house playing tag, and ride in a rocket fueled by song power? Yeah, all of those experiences were valuable for her social cognitive development. Just as Bing Bong's theme song had the ability to power the rainbow boosters of Bing Bong's rocket ship wagon when sung, Bing Bong, as Riley's imaginary companion, had the ability to power her social cognitive capabilities. As parents and teachers, don't worry if your preschooler has an imaginary companion. The research presented in this video suggests that having imaginary companions can be developmentally beneficial, so instead, let's support it.
Bing bong, bing bong.